All of the things are just circles, a projection of circles. If you place a bunch of circles, the golden ratio apart from each other, and get them to spin, you're going to recognize a lot of patterns. It's called the harmony of the spheres, and Johannes Kepler used it a while ago to pretty accurately predict the orbits of the planets in the solar system. There are actually no real straight lines other than the center point from one circle to the center point of another circle. That's where you get the approximations of straight lines. But in certain frames, they appear to be straight lines. So what's up with the golden ratio? Well, if you confine the golden ratio to a cube, then it creates a sphere. If we make a radiograph, kind of like a world map out of that sphere, it hits the radiograph in 3 important points, making a triangle. And if you have geometrics, you know that triangles are pretty much how we tell time. In math, the golden ratio creates a Fibonacci sequence, and geometrically it looks like that. Sister pattern is the binary template, which creates the 3D, the things you see. Binary is how cells divide. It's literally required for life. So that math we process through geometry over time creates the experience that you watch. But who's the watcher? Easily some of the strangest stuff I've ever seen on the internet, and it has to do with light. So when you shine a laser exactly on a hole drilled in a bottle or something with water in it, the laser will follow the water stream. That is a property of light called refraction, and it's how we see rainbows. In total refraction like this, it would be like shining the laser pointer on your hand, but it's going through the stream of water. Now, if you use that same laser and you shoot it through a water droplet that's dripping off a syringe, you can create a microscope, hoping your water's not that dirty. This one's insane. This is from a guy called Art Pete Repeat. He does these cool color and light experiments. You should definitely give him a follow. If you have a red, green, and blue flashlight and you shine them all together, what combines in the middle is white light. This is basic color theory. It has to do with the harmonics of waves. Light is a wave. If you create a barrier or a slit and put it in the middle of that white light, you can split it back up into its parts. That's not even the coolest part. The shadow is the inverse of that slit. Waves are related through geometry. Those 3 colors are related in a triangle. The inverse of that triangle is the shadow colors. The shadow will cancel out its inverse passing through the slit due to interference. Some waves constructively interfere and some destructively interfere. That's destructive interference. This is a wild one. This is called stereographic projection. It's how maps are made. This is the process of taking something in a higher dimension like 3D and converting it into 2 dimensions using just light and shadows. This is how we make maps. It gets weirder when we get smaller. This is a photon, or a hologram of one at least. They move in packets, kind of like sound waves. Notice that shape. That shape is the same shape as the Great Pyramid when viewed from the top down. It is 8-sided. I know what you're thinking. What does that have to do with a photon? It's just a coincidence. The corner slope angle of the Great Pyramid is 42 degrees. You remember what 42 degrees is? It is the refractive angle of the sphere. The interior angle is a golden ratio lower. That golden ratio. A perfect glass sphere will bend light at a phi ratio. That's where the intersection point is. The Great Pyramid nails it at 400 feet tall. Impossible to guess this shape. Is it a hexagon or is it a cube? Or is it triangles? This is the problem of the second dimension. There's only light and darkness. With only 2 dimensions, it's really easy to fool somebody by just transforming simple lines. In 3 dimensions, we have depth, we have clarity. The interaction of light and darkness gives us more insight to what's actually going on. But that can only happen through time. It takes time to move around and experience. Once you know what it is, you integrate it and you evolve. This movement is what transforms our understanding through the breath of time. Eventually, we figured out there's just 7 simple rules that everything in reality follows. Without rules to the game, there is no game. All of these possible realities within these rules are what we call the 8th dimension, or the multiverse in science. Being able to choose one of these possibilities is the gift of the mind. Emotion provides the boundary to possibility. The 2 seem separate, but they cannot exist without one another. Each frame of experience is bounded by the first 4 dimensions and synthesized by the 5th and the 6th. The mind and emotion providing the sail and the rudder to navigate the present moment. We can't break any of these rules. We get feedback in the emotional centers when we approach a boundary that we're not supposed to cross. This experience through the human vehicle is just one of many realities that you could possibly be living in. Now you understand dimensional coherence. For those who do not know about water, this may freak you out. Veda Austin has stumbled upon some pretty wild stuff. She let salt water evaporate in a petri dish with a pyramid in it, and the salt water crystallized into little mini pyramids. Now to test this, she used the same salt water and let it evaporate without the pyramid, and it formed its normal cubical shape. Now, water is pretty unique in the universe. If you get it in your car motor, it'll lock it up and bend all the metal. And it's also how we turn turbines in coal plants. It exists in all 3 states on the planet, and it is a very powerful solvent. Its molecules are shaped like hexagons, and we see this when it freezes. This means that anything that is dissolved in it can be stored in it, which is why you should always filter and realign your water if you can. I've shown you through cymatics that your DNA also shares this same shape, and using cymatics, we can read it like a song. If Veda left this in a quiet room, it's probably resonating at the Schumann resonance, about 7 hertz, the resonance of the planet. When that crystal vibrates, it transmits that vibration to the salt crystals via the water. There's a fantastic research paper on this by HAL Science. They transmitted an entire genetic sequence through water using 7 hertz. They put 2 beakers of water next to each other. One was pure water, one was DNA. They then subjected them both to 7 hertz and waited 18 hours. After using a polymerase reaction, they recreated the DNA. If that wasn't enough, a team of researchers made a hard drive using the same technique. It stored the data of 2 trillion CDs in a gram, and it read it 10,000 times faster. We need to talk about this. This is granite carved to perfection. It requires a diamond tip drill bit, which they did not have 1,000 years ago. Now, a lot of people jump to ancient aliens or some conspiracy theory. Understanding their tech would be like trying to explain a cell phone 200 years ago. So I'm going to explain it with cymatics. If you follow me, you know that this is vibrating water on a speaker, makes these cool patterns. But cymatics can decode everything you see. This is the Konark Sun Temple. I think you know where I'm going with this. This is exact, it's not close, it is perfect. Let's take a look at the pillars. That is a sound wave, that is a sound wave, that's a 3D sound wave. Our culture is obsessed with the how they did it, but we got to look at the why they did it first. Another important concept, sound travels through the air in spheres. And if you take that sphere and you track it through time, it starts to look like these very complex pillars. This is one of our acoustic resonators that we use today. This is a Hindu temple. This is a high frequency oscillator. It's used to keep time in digital devices. If we go across the pond to India's neighbor, we come across this cool temple called Angkor Wat. Left is the sensor, right is the temple diagram for Angkor Wat. If you're like me, you grew up thinking that these were just myths used by religion to keep society under control. And that's true if you don't have the piece that connects it all. Use your eyes to decode the manual and discover your purpose. Granite's pretty hard to edit. The images you're about to see were created using only light and sound. It's like a picture book of life created with vibrational geometry, and it's called cymatics. It's the study of the shape of sound. The earliest forms of life that we know reflect the earliest frequencies on the planet. Everything we thought was a random pattern isn't really random at all. Humans took note of these frequencies, and then we materialized their meaning. These pictures are worth 1,000 words, but these frequencies appear to have provided an infinite amount of feeling. We encoded the patterns since the beginning of civilization. They're like bookmarks in art connecting the seen with the unseen. It was a tangible connection to a previously invisible world. Those shapes became symbols that reflected the entire beliefs of certain cultures and societies. These patterns are the proof for how connected everything actually is. Most people don't even know how significant it is. The Renaissance pulled us out of the Dark Ages by reviving these ancient lessons. The few that knew the secrets created art so good that we couldn't look away. The explanation of why these things are such great pieces of art never really gets explained in school. We can look at all of these as separate, and culturally they are, but in reality we're all talking about the exact same thing. There is no division. Words are limited, they can get lost and misinterpreted. The only thing we feel is sound. When you resonate, you belong, you feel accepted. The only way to break that connection is to manufacture division. This is your DNA. When you view it from the top down, you can see the molecular bonds that make this mandala. It's a fractal antenna interacting with the environment, bridging the etheric with the material. The harmonic patterns you see in the environment are a reflection of the resonance with you. Those bonds show you the link, but the atoms can show you the little pieces. This species has created a technology that can explore these things on the smallest level. If all this is entangled, then harming anybody in the planetary family is actually harming ourselves. 2,000 years into the common era, and we're just now figuring out there's nothing new under the sun. But you're in it, you're a part of it, the universe, the one song. It's huge, it's incredible. Show somebody you care about how beautiful it is to share this little soundtrack with them. Seriously, out of all the mind-numbing content on here, share the magic of being here with them for 1 minute. You really do not know who may need to hear it today. Or maybe you don't want to be in this orchestra without that special person. Whatever it is, without your piece, this symphony wouldn't be perfect. You're in the you inverse for a reason. First law of thermodynamics, energy cannot be created or destroyed. So you've been here. Everything that is couldn't be everything without you. Now go make the best of this song. You know who's here to help you if you need it.
Rhythm and pitch are the same thing. So a note, a pitch, for example middle C, is just a frequency, right? Middle C is just a pulse, a regular pulse, playing at 15,697.8 BPM. And we can actually hear that if we slow down this note. We eventually just get to a pulse. Well, we can do the same thing in reverse. This is a quarter note kick drum pulse at 160 BPM. Now, see what happens if we gradually increase the tempo of this pulse. At some point as we increase the tempo, our ears stop perceiving that pulse as a rhythm and begin perceiving it as a pitch, because rhythm and pitch are the same thing.
This part is what most people know about and worry about day to day. This is what you never hear about unless you're into it. This is called esoteric info. You probably grew up in one of these. At about 14, you go, those are myths, science is real. At this point, atheism sets in. From like 16 to 25, you watch these guys use the technology those guys make to kill each other really good. After that, you start to dig. Then you find a bunch of conspiracy videos and send them to me, back to back. You ignore the bottom because it seems like the guys here are running the show, which is kind of true. They're just making the decisions that you can't. Then you further a career in one of these for a few years. You get real smart and then you see that the quantum guys snuck the ether back in without you even knowing. Do a quick Google search or pause this video and realize every father of quantum science was into mysticism. Then you knock lightly on the door of mysticism, which is this shape, after watching Terrence Howard explain the flower of life, the oldest symbol in existence. After leaving a quick comment asking if this is what he's talking about, you get into sacred geometry. You learn some cool shapes and what they mean while slowly and methodically becoming an alchemist. Alchemy is entirely symbolic. By learning the universal meaning of these shapes instead of the meaning that men give to them, you start to understand what's going on. Alchemy was for those in the know to teach through art and architecture. Mostly their own art, sprinkled in with the mainstream. All of this originating from the masters of this technique, the Egyptians, who taught the laws of natural balance with their friends in the East who still teach it today. Then we revisit the iceberg and wonder what the hell these guys are talking about.
The Egyptian gods never existed. They symbolized the different body parts of your body. Anubis is the dog, which represents the tongue, the barking, because the power of life and death is in the tongue. The falcon of Horus is the inner bird, which is inside of the brainstem. Thoth, the god of wisdom. Thoth is thought, because he is the god of wisdom, the thought, the human mind. Jed pillar is the spinal column, which is a part of the brain. The Ankh is the womb, the uterus in the womb, because this is the portal into the physical world. This is symbolizing how the visual field works with the brain, because you do not see into the external world. What you are seeing is an image produced by the visual cortex in the back of the brain. The back of the casket is the cerebellum, which is all to do with motor learning and cognitive functions of the brain. The scarab is the skull. Hindus used to build temples in the human form because they understood this is the most advanced piece of technology on the face of the earth. The Most High does not dwell in houses made by human hands. It's your human body. You are God made flesh. They don't want you finding out how sacred your body is and how powerful your mind is. You are the all-seeing eye on top of the pyramid, looking into the three-dimensional world. You are Solomon's temple, the temple of the soul and the mon, the soul and the mind in the temple.
Pyramid, and you find them in cities. Chichen Itza follows a binary pattern. This is a binary pyramid. You find these in jungles. This is a Fibonacci pyramid, and you find them in cities. Chichen Itza follows a binary pattern. You are a binary pattern. When cells divide, this is the numerical pathway that they take. Step pyramids reflect a binary relationship with the slope angle. We see these all over the Americas. The pyramids of Djoser and Kokera are also good examples of this. The Great Pyramid is a Fibonacci pyramid. Fibonacci focus. The angles, chambers, and pretty much the entire complex is designed around this ratio. That angle is the natural angle a sphere focuses light. That is an actual picture of a sphere in fog with a light source behind it so you can see how it focuses. Light is just the easiest way to see how this works. Using high voltage and a long exposure camera, you can see how this focuses discharge into a helix. Both geometries deal with signal processing. A smooth angle would be like a sine wave. An angle with steps would be a square wave like these. Converting any type of wave is done by using what's called the Fourier transform. Using math that I won't explain here, we can iterate the sine wave and step by step get closer and closer to the square wave, even though we'll never actually get to a perfect square. Now, the shape of the pyramid is a reflection of its resonance. Why does it matter if a pyramid resonates? We use it for antennas. Borobadur's architecture is its frequency. This affects the interference pattern like that of other vibrations that it interacts with, like light, and the electromagnetic spectrum. This interference pattern is what you're seeing here in Chichen Itza. Frequencies at each level interact with each other, creating these patterns. Each frequency band can be calculated with math. The levels of the pyramid correspond to the frequency within the transformation. Fibonacci pyramids like Giza are a focal point. That is what you're seeing here. What you're seeing here is the Great Pyramid resonating with long radio waves that focus and amplify the electromagnetic spectrum into the Earth. Giza is above the Nile water table. Chichen Itza is above a cenote. Water transmits and stores electricity very effectively. It could also be used as a capacitor. An enormous amount of South America is terraformed. There's literally thousands of miles of these farms. It's not just Machu Picchu. Using a soil called terra preta, you should look this up, they created the Amazon rainforest. Yes, you heard that right. They created the Amazon rainforest. It is man-made. For nearly 10,000 years, these masters were caretakers of the forest. In Giza, initiates would travel down the temple path of the Nile. Here, you would learn or remember the aspects of the universe from the priests, and if you were good enough, you made it here. That's the guidebook if you can understand it. Why would you do this? Well, to interact with this nightmare, you have to install software on it, and then plug it into intelligence. What does this mean? When you're terraforming a planet after a severe climate reset, step pyramids are a good way to set up a biosphere, an atmosphere, and create food for the inhabitants. A Fibonacci pyramid would give you the ability to transmit and receive data if you knew how to align them properly. But of course, this is all hypothetical. We know these people just use hard work and slaves and their superior focus skills because they don't have cell phones. When I don't have mine, all I can think about is building pyramids for sacrifices. It's the easiest way to stack rocks, right?